Damas y caballeros, welcome to our Women in Business and Leadership Plenary, a lively and candid discussion moderated by Jennifer Rodriguez of the Greater Philadelphia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, with a panel of distinguished Latina elected officials, featuring the Honorable Catherine Cortez Masto, Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia, and Congresswoman Veronica Escobar. We'll also welcome for a second panel Latinas in Corporate America, with moderator Christine Rice of Vision IT, along with Marta Codina from Wells Fargo, Patricia Chavez of Bank of America, and Hope Field from Coca-Cola. Before we begin, a word from our signature and platinum sponsors.
I'm delighted to kick off the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce Women in Business and Leadership panel. As a female leader, I understand the importance of lifting up the success stories of women in business, stories that help us envision our own pathway and our own possibilities. I'd like to recognize the Chamber for the incredible work being accomplished in this unprecedented time. A special congratulations to Ramiro Cavazos, President and CEO, for his leadership. We've been a longtime partner of USHCC, working together to promote the economic growth of Hispanic-owned businesses. We have come together with an intensified passion for racial equality. That's why Bank of America has announced a $1 billion four-year commitment to help drive racial equality and economic opportunity with a focus on people and communities of color. Hispanic-owned businesses are a vital part of this solution. It's an honor to be with you today, and more importantly, to hear from these extraordinary women. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the Women in Business and Leadership Luncheon. My name is Kathleen Martinez, and I'm with BP America, and it's a pleasure to be here with you today. BP has supported the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and this very luncheon for many years, and we're very excited to be able to do that again this year. Now, 2020 has been a very difficult year for all of us. Whether we've lost family members or friends, or been severely impacted through our small businesses by COVID-19, it has been a very challenging year. Pero como Latinos, siempre adelante. And on behalf of BP, I want to thank the USHCC, Ramiro Cavazos, the board of directors, and the staff for all the work that they've done this year in particular to make sure that our Latino-owned businesses and small businesses across the United States had the information and resources that they needed to move ahead in these very difficult times. So on behalf of BP, I just want to say muchísimas gracias y nos vemos muy pronto. Enjoy the conference, enjoy the luncheon. We'll see you very soon.
Hello, everyone. I'm Mary Mack, and I have the pleasure of serving as the CEO of Consumer and Small Business Banking here at Wells Fargo. It's an honor and a privilege for Wells Fargo to be part of the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce's National Convention this year. This is the single largest gathering of Hispanic business leaders in America, and we're so proud to be the signature sponsor of the Women in Business and Leadership Plenary. The accomplishment of U.S. Hispanics, including all of you all here virtually today, have enriched communities. And for more than 160 years, Wells Fargo has been honored and proud to help generations of Hispanic families, organizations, and small businesses grow financially. Today's event recognizes Latinas who have carved out their own paths and have reached the highest levels of success in their respective fields while also making outstanding contributions to their industries. Both collectively and individually, you all have made such a positive impact in your respective fields, and I salute all of your journeys. Because I know at times it hadn't been easy, especially in today's unprecedented environment. But despite any obstacles you may have encountered along the way, you have persevered and kept your focus on the path ahead. As a woman and a leader at Wells Fargo, I benefit from an inclusive and diverse workplace that celebrates and empowers each individual to be their best and to grow. And that's critical. My personal leadership journey has been quite a ride over the last 36 years at Wells Fargo. And while I've worked hard to get where I am today and have experienced both ups and downs along the way, I wouldn't be here without all of the support, strength, and encouragement I've received from so many people along the way. So as you celebrate and recognize women leaders today, I encourage each of you to remember this one thing. The path that we're on is not a solo journey. There are friends, family, mentors, colleagues, leaders, children, and so many others walking alongside you. Be that support person for somebody else and know that you'll be a winner in the partnership as well. So enjoy today's Women in Business and Leadership Plenary. And on behalf of Wells Fargo, we wish you all continued success.
On behalf of the Coca-Cola Company, bienvenidos. Welcome to the Women in Business and Leadership Forum. We are proud to support the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce National Conference and this event that celebrates trailblazing women that elevate the American business community. Like the USHCC, Coca-Cola shares passion and determination to empower women entrepreneurs. Our company made a global commitment in 2010 to empower 5 million women by 2020. That's right, 5 million women. This initiative is called 5 by 20. Through this, we created programs focused on helping female business owners overcome the barriers they face when trying to succeed in the marketplace. They have been developed to meet women wherever they are, in their communities, in businesses, or online, and provide business skills training, financial services, and peer-to-peer mentoring. One of these programs is STEP, Supplier Training and Empowerment Program, which is designed to help women-owned suppliers to stay competitive and to grow their businesses. As women entrepreneurs seek to take their businesses to the next level, STEP gives them the step up that they need. Achieving this vision of economic power for our women depends on partnerships and events like this one. Women control 20 trillion, 2/3 of worldwide spending, and do 66% of the world's work, but earn 10% of the world's income, yet reinvest 90% of their income into family and the community. Entrepreneurship is a pathway to economic freedom for women. As of December 2019, 4.6 million women have leveraged the 5 by 20 tools around the world. And in the USA and territories, over 600,000 women. We are on track to meeting our goal. Today, we celebrate all those lives that are positively being changed because of this organization and its partners. So I ask you to grab your favorite Coca-Cola beverage, mine is Smart Water, and to join us to toast to a quote by John Maxwell. Leaders become great, not because of their power, but because of their ability to empower others. Cheers.
Esteemed guests and conference attendees, please welcome our moderator, the President and CEO of the Greater Philadelphia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, Jennifer Rodriguez.
Buenos días a todos. Good morning and or afternoon, depending on where you are. Welcome to the In Her Footsteps panel, Latina Leaders in Congress. It is my pleasure, and on behalf of the Board of Directors of the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, to have this fantastic, what will be a fantastic conversation with three amazing Latina leaders. We have today with us U.S. Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia from Texas, Congresswoman Veronica Escobar from Texas, and U.S. Senator Kathleen Cortez Masto from Nevada joining us today. We will talk with them about their experience as women, how those experiences have shaped their leadership, and really their trajectory of their lives and how those have really impacted their agendas. Each of these women have broken records in history in their respective states and districts. And we have, for example, Senator Kathleen Cortez Masto, who served 2 years as Attorney General of Nevada And in November 2016, she made history by becoming the first woman from Nevada and the first Latina ever elected to the United States Senate. We have Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia, who is a first-term representative in the U.S. Congress, and she is the first Latina to represent the Texas 29th Congressional District. And we also have Congresswoman Veronica Escobar. She is first woman elected to the seat and the first of two Latinas from Texas to serve in Congress. So we have an illustrious panel. Welcome today to the U.S. Hispanic Convention.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. We're excited to be here.
Well, really, we want our audience to get to know you as leaders, as individuals. We just heard some incredible statistics about the power of women, and really, and you exemplify the best that there is in our country, not only in the Latino community. I would like to start by asking you about, how did your childhood experiences shape who you are today as a leader and how they have shaped your policy priorities? And perhaps we can start in Nevada with Senator Catherine Cortez Masto. Welcome today, Senator Cortez.
Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you to everyone out there with the Hispanic Chamber. So excited to be here with all of you and look forward to working with all of you. Let me say, for me growing up, so I'm half Mexican and half Italian, but I come from a family of strong women. And I think that really shaped where I am today. Good parents, strong family, but it was the women in my family. I will tell you, my mother, growing up, my parents are middle class, right? My father was a parking attendant at a hotel and casino with the Dunes Hotel. My mother was a bookkeeper in a title company. But like every family, they worked hard and went on to do other things. They owned small businesses. My mother and father owned, my mother owned a dress shop. She owned an escrow company. My father owned an auto glass company. But was from that experience watching them and watching how as an individual in your community, you can continue to be involved and give back, but also the struggle as an entrepreneur, small business owner, and what it takes to survive and continue to be putting food on the table for your families and making sure your kids get a good education. My parents were always working hard to make sure my sister and I had the ability to go to college and graduate, and we did. And so it was that environment that really I think the pathway for me to continue to recognize that so many people want that same opportunity, and we didn't get there alone. And so we've got to help others. And I think I heard a panelist earlier say it is about once you get here, it's one thing to make history. It's another to be at the table, representing and being a voice for those who are underrepresented, and then opening that door even wider to making sure that we all recognize once we get there, we have a responsibility to make sure others come through it. And that to me is the key to all of this. I had great mentors. I had not only people in my family, but people in my work life that were wonderful mentors, both men and women. And literally I would take advantage of that, learn from them, learn what's to do, what not to do. I think that's crucial as you're going through your career, to remember to recognize those that may be bad leaders, because you recognize what not to do, just as well as you look at good leaders and recognize what you should or shouldn't be doing. So I think it's a combination of things growing up, but it started, no doubt, with my parents and family.
And Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia, do you relate to that story, or do you have a different experience that you would like to share with us?
Well, a lot of it is the same. I think we have discovered when we all visit with each other that our stories are very similar. What sets us apart is the size of the family or the experience growing up but it always is about the strong women in our families. And I think my mother, I thank her for a lot of the support and encouragement in the making me believe in myself that I could climb every mountain was one of her favorite sayings in Spanish, that you can do anything. But for us, I think it was because we grew up on a farm in South Texas. We grew up poor. I've had to work all my life, but nothing was ever done really between boys and girls, because when you're on a farm, it really is about size and your strength in terms of what you can do. So we were never told, no, you can't milk cows. No, they wanted us to go help milk cows, or no, you can't go pick cotton. Everybody went to pick cotton as long as you were tall enough and strong enough to handle the work. And because we were 5 boys and 5 girls, we're a family of 10, it started, very evenly divided from the beginning. Obviously that was not by design, but for us, it was always about just our small community. In Palito Blanco, it's a ranching community in South Texas. And, the best population I remember we ever had was like 55 people. So it's like, for us, we didn't know anything but what was on the farm. So that was about family. It was about going to school, and it was about going to church. The 3 basic institutions that still, build the foundation of this country. So we grew up, doing our part, working hard, and that has served us well. And for me, again, I believe the senator is correct. It's the strong women in our family that have pushed us and made sure that we can achieve. Obviously, it was my daddy that would put us all in the truck to make sure we went to church, but it was my mother who was saying we had to do it. So, it was always that way for us. And I look forward to our discussion, and I'm real happy to be here with the senator and my comadre from Texas. She and I have shared a lot of experiences as elected officials, and we know that it's more than just our language and our heritage. It's also about the values that matter. So thank you for the question.
Absolutely. Congresswoman Veronica Escobar, how has your childhood shaped who you are as a leader?
Well, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with the Hispanic Chamber. Thanks to everybody watching. And so wonderful to be with 2 elected women who I admire and whose work I think is really instrumental in shaping our country. My response is really very similar to the senators and to the congresswomen's. The women shaped my life. And I grew up in El Paso, safe and secure border community. It is still a safe and secure border community, among the safest in the nation for decades. And grew up near my family's dairy farm, where Sylvia's right, you just work hard. That's what you do. And every day there's many tasks to accomplish. There's a lot of responsibilities, and you don't ask why, you just do it. But it's interesting, and I wonder if part of this is cultural, but a very strong matriarchal component of my family. Very, very strong matriarchal. My dad was sweet as could be, but yeah, my mom basically was the taskmaster. My mom is the one who gave the orders. My mom is the one who really shaped us in many ways. And it wasn't just my mom, who just has an incredible story, learned English in her teens, but, went on to be really just an incredible leader within the family and within each one of the schools that we attended. She was always PTA president, or, she was always organizing something or around the neighborhood. If we needed street lights, she was gathering signatures to send to city council to get a street light. And so I really learned engagement from my mom, but there's from the extended family. My mom and my dad each had 12 siblings, but my dad's siblings were much older. My mom's siblings, my parents were 15 years apart, and my mom literally married the milkman. My mom's family.
That's a great story, Veronica.
my mom and her sisters and brothers, but mostly her sisters, very tight. So we would have an extended family dinner every Sunday with her siblings. And it was just this powerhouse of women. who worked together to feed all of us, cousins. The kids would be outside playing kickball or baseball in the backyard or in the street or in the alley, waiting, for dinner. The men would be watching football, of course, and the women would be in the kitchen, like cooking and chatting, and it was this incredible show for me of women who form a team, a powerful team, and what teamwork can do. And through all of these decades growing up, if someone had cancer or if someone was sick or if a spouse died, the team, the family was always there to support, to uplift. So I very much grew up with the values of taking care of one another, that's what you do. I also, within my own family, and I think it's my Catholic upbringing, grew up with the values of whatsoever you do to the least of my brothers. And that to me is a value that inspires me every day, about the vulnerable, about those in need, about making sure that those who are less fortunate than those of us who are incredibly privileged to either have an education or a roof over our heads or food on our table, the obligation that we have to take care of others. And all of that came from my family, but mostly from the matriarchs in the family.
And that is really a wonderful way. I think what we are seeing is, of course, women in Latino community have a very special and key role in really guiding their families. And while there might be in the kitchen in what we might think of traditional roles, right? They are this behind the scenes and upfront leaders of the families. And so that leads me to my next question. So you are in Congress, you are elected officials. Clearly, women are not represented to the fullest extent in our elected roles. Tell me a little bit about whether you see any differences between male political leadership, female political leadership. Do you both genders approach the work differently? Is the teamwork different? The topics and subjects, the agenda? Have you noticed any differences, or are we all just human and approach the work similarly? And I will take, who's the first one that volunteers for that question?
No, I'll be happy to start. I think, I've been involved in politics and for a very long time. And I can tell you that women generally, and that, whatever I say today for the gentlemen that are watching, please do not be offended. These are general observations. Every body that I've been in, and I've been in city government, county government, state government, and now federal government. Women, in my view, are more patient, we're better listeners, and we're more conscientious. We tend to be at meetings on time. We tend to do our homework, and we tend to be inclusive and really wanting to listen and hear what others have to say at the table. We interrupt less, and we don't get loud and pound on the table. I have a lot of colleagues, particularly one committee, that as soon as the men get started, as long as one starts getting louder and pounding, then it's like magic. All the others start doing that too.
Yeah, I know which committee you're talking about.
Yeah, because you're on there with me. So now we put the cats out of the bag. But it's almost like they're trying to outraise their voice of each other or pound harder. And we just kind of sit back. Now, why is that important? Well, it's important because when you're governing or when you're legislating, you do need to hear, you need consensus, you need to try to get what's best for the greater good. Like I would say that if we had more women in charge, we would have had a plan for this pandemic from the day one in February when we first heard about it. We would have already tackled more than half of this. People would already probably be back to work. We wouldn't be involved in wars. We would have already sent another relief package out. I mean, I just think we govern differently, and we have a bigger heart. I'll yield now to my colleagues and see if they agree or disagree. But it's general comment.
Yeah, I agree.
So yes, of course, we love men as well, but this happens to be in her footsteps and not his footsteps. So, so Senator, how would the Senate be different if there were more women elected?
Yeah, so I absolutely agree with Sylvia. What I have found over the years, including here in the Senate, women are more focused on the problem solving. They are more focused on, okay, what's the issue we have? Okay, how do we work together to solve this problem? And let me give you a perfect example. When I first got here in the Senate 3 years ago, that first month that I was here, I got invited by the women of the Senate, and there's not a lot of us, but by the women of the Senate to go to dinner. And once a month, we go to dinner, bipartisan, come together as dinner. We talk, get to know one another. We talk about issues. How do we work together? How do we work through these issues? And that really is reflective, I think, of how women approach different areas. And this is why it's important. I always put this in perspective. Right now in the United States Senate, over 200 years of the Senate, remember, predominantly men, there's only ever been 57 women. And when I got elected and was sworn in 2017, I was number 50. So what I think, and I think so many truly understand this, is women are half the population. We have to be at the table if we are going to inform policy that is going to benefit all of us. And I think that's the strength of the diversity. That is the strength of more women coming to the table, being engaged, whether it's here in the halls of Congress or in corporate America. Because when you're engaged, you're at the table, you're problem solving, you're a part of that solution, you're bringing with you all of the other perspectives of those women across the country who traditionally have been left out because it's so male dominated for the last 200 years. And so that's why I always say it is important we put more women in. Now, let me say one final thing, because I'll be curious what my colleagues think. When women run for office, this is the difference between men and women that I have found. Women who are multitaskers, we just naturally, that's what we do. We take care of our parents, we take care of our kids, we get ready for school, we get ready for work, we just do it and don't ask questions. But when it comes time to run for office, women will think, okay, do I have the education? Do I have the experience? Can I manage us? And the one thing most men that I hear ask is, well, what does it pay? If it pays what I like, then I'm going to run for office. So I find there's a distinction, and more women have to come forward and be engaged and realize that they just have to have the confidence and the passion to believe that they can accomplish something, and they will get elected, and it will inform us, and it will be good policy. We are seeing that now more and more over the last, I want to say, 5 years, 6 years, more women coming forward, getting engaged and stepping up, whether it's in corporate America or entrepreneurs or in the halls of Congress. But we have a ways to go, I will say that.
And so what will it take to increase the number of women that are running for office? Congresswoman Veronica Escobar, do you have any thoughts on that?
I do, and I'm gonna actually take a comment that the senator made and jump off of that, because she's right. That so many women think about all of the menu of reasons, that would draw them into a race. Do I have the education? Can I raise the money? Can I take this time away from my family, et cetera? And I think most men who run for office think about the position. Most women who run for office, I think, are driven by issues and are motivated by those issues, but we very much evaluate the lay of the land. I saw some research also that demonstrated that more women have to be asked to run, whereas most men make the decision for themselves, like, I want to be a congressman or I want to be president. And most women generally are asked to do it because we still, unfortunately, don't have the same privilege that men do. When I decided to run for Congress, I did have to put together a significant plan. I knew I would be out of work for a year and a half. I was serving as county judge of my community, but I live in Texas, where if you are in county government and you announce for another seat, you effectively resign your position. So I knew I would be without an income for a year and a half. I had a son, my husband and I had a son in college, a daughter who was heading to college, a mortgage, car payments, pets, all those responsibilities and obligations that I had to think through. How will I make this work? And my husband, I once asked him, like, honey, what did you think when I told you I wanted to run and that I would need to quit my job? And his response was really telling. He said, I knew that if it was possible, you would figure out a way to do it. And I think that the women bring that skill set to maybe it says more about my husband, I don't know. But women bring that skill set, I think, to the table where we figure things out, we solve problems, but we do have to, we do still have to ask more women. We've got to open more doors. It's very hard at these, at these federal levels for middle-class women to raise the money that is sometimes required. The most of us, I would bet, on this Zoom conversation don't have, a slew of wealthy friends who can write massive checks. And so did I freeze, or can you all hear me?
We can still hear you. We can hear you.
Okay. Hear you? Okay. Great. So I think it's going to take more organizations and groups that support female candidates, especially middle-class candidates, single mom candidates, working class candidates. And it's going to take women like us who do everything we can to open those doors and bring more women like us along with us.
And what you have just said really reminds me a lot about the obstacles that entrepreneurs, Latino entrepreneurs, female and male Latino entrepreneurs face, right? The not knowing, not having the social capital, the fundraising, the challenges with really gathering all the resources, the tools in order to succeed as an entrepreneur. So it's very interesting to me to hear that as elected or potentially somebody that wants to run, that you are facing very similar obstacles. So, we are sort of coming to the end of this conversation, and I think I could ask you a million questions. But one of the things that's really interesting to me is, of course, this is Hispanic Heritage Month. And I wonder about how does being of Hispanic heritage influence your policy agenda? Are there things that you're doing because you understand that Latinos in this country, there might be discrepancies and disparities in the outcomes that have influenced the work that you do today? And if Congresswoman Garcia would like to chime in, that would be great.
Well, for me, it's always it's a part of who I am, and I can't erase that. And I think probably because I'm winner, and sometimes people assume that I'm not Hispanic because I just don't look it. I think all my life I've always even been more conscious about it because I feel like I have to prove myself even to Latinos and Latinas to say, no, I'm one of you too. I'm just Huera. I mean, and that's just the way I grew up. I'm sorry. I used to tell people when I was growing up that I was Huera because I'm one of 10 children and I'm number 8, that by the time they got to me, they were running out of the brown pigmentation, right? So I think for me, maybe sometimes it's a part of who I am. And it's important to be that voice. I represent a district that's 77% Latino. And it's important for me when I'm at the table to raise the issues that matter to them, to represent them, and to speak from the heart. My mother always told me, no te olvides que eres Garcia. So I always live with that in my ear. I've got to speak up. It's my mother's talking to me. And y'all, it goes back to the mothers influencing us. So for me, it's part of who I am, and always I will be a voice, not just for all Americans, but particularly for Americans of Mexican descent, and for poor Americans, because I grew up poor. I know what it's like to open the refrigerator and see nothing but the water jar in there, and wonder whether or not you're going to eat that evening. So I've lived it. So I always have a heart for speaking up for Latinos and for people in poverty. And I look forward to continue working with the senator and my comadre to make sure that when we speak, that we speak in a strong voice and a united voice, because as Hispanic Americans, we are different all over the country. Between my good friend from Florida, our other comadre, Debbie McCurcell-Powell, her experiences are different than mine, but it's nuestra lengua and nuestra herencia that bring us together. So I look forward to continue my work with them. So thank you for the question, and thank you for having us.
Oh, absolutely. Senator, does being Hispanic heritage influence your policy and your work, or not? Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and it goes back to what Sylvia said, I don't know anything other than growing up the way that I did. Very strong Mexican-American grandfather who came from Chihuahua, and a very dominant father who was Mexican-American. That's my experience. I don't know anything different. But does it inform me in my policy? Absolutely, it informs my policy making. And I think it's what Sylvia said. We all come from a different perspective. We all bring that with us. But at the end of the day, it is recognizing that there is still that disparity, that we have to lift up the poor, that there are still challenges today. I saw where my grandparents came from and how hard they worked. And then my parents worked hard for the same reasons. But at the end of the day, when I go back to my state in Nevada, a third are Latinos. And just talking about COVID, there's a disproportionate impact to our population. And that's just COVID. And there was so much more happening even prior to that. So yes, it informs everything that I do moving forward in the Senate because of the challenges in our community. And so many families are struggling right now. And I think it's important that we recognize that. But this is why it's the beauty of having more of this diversity and why I am such a proponent of it. We have to have, and I think Congress, really the people that work in Congress and walk the halls of Congress should be just as diverse as the communities we represent. And we're not there yet. We have a ways to go. And once we get there, then we will hopefully lift everybody up. We pull people out of poverty. There's no disproportionate impact because we have people at the table making informed decisions about policy that it benefits all of us and nobody's left behind. But we still have a ways to get there. And that's why I think I love the opportunity to have these forums where we're talking about women in leadership, not just in corporate America, but in other forms and fashion throughout the United States. It is so important that we continue to remember we still have a path that we're on, and we have to accomplish that path so that we can make sure we're looking out for everybody's best interests.
And I think that absolutely, it is very important for us as a community. And it's so inspiring to hear you talk about how your experiences and who you are as an individual influence the work that you do. But I think one of the things as we think about, as we think about the role of women in society, what you have talked to us about in relation to the need to have more women, and in our case in this forum, Latina women step up and not wait to be asked to run for office. If you wait, it might be taking too long, right? And so our communities, we would be so it looks like we would be better off as a country if there were more of us in leadership positions, such as you today have demonstrated. I was inspired by your talk about the influence of your family, of teamwork, of collaborating, of having dinner with people from the opposite side, that regardless of your differing policy agendas or differing priorities, you find time to be human and to build relationships. And I think that is this a quality that we can all, and actions that we can all take in our private lives in order to make a better society, right? As we close today, I really want to thank each of you, Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia, Congresswoman Veronica Escobar, U.S. Senator Kathleen Cortez Masto, for being with us today, for sharing your life experience, your life story. November is around the corner, and Latinos, we have an opportunity to really make a difference in the outcomes of the election, but we must all vote. And I think there's a great effort around the country in the Latino community to make sure that our voices are heard. And it is important that we make a plan to vote, go and vote, because look at the outcomes. When we vote, we have fantastic leadership that represents us. So we have just a couple of minutes. So if I would give 30 seconds to each of us to close us out, and just 30 seconds, because otherwise we'll be cut off. Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia, what would you say in closing today?
Well, first, thank you so much. And please remember to make a plan and make sure that you're registered to vote and vote. This is a very, very critical election. It's one that's going to impact not only our lives today, but the future of our country and the future for our children. So please make sure that you vote. And if you haven't already, please fill out your census form. That too is critical to the future growth of our communities. Thank you.
And Senator Cortez Masto, in a couple of words, what would you say to the audience today?
Well, thank you, everyone. Look forward to working with you. I agree. Get out and vote. It's the most important thing we can do, but also fill out your census. Make sure you take the time to fill it out and send it back.
And finally, Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia, what would you tell our audience today in closing?
I think you probably mean me, Veronica.
I never asked you my
Thank you. I want to thank everybody watching, my great colleagues and leaders, to our great moderator. We have an obligation to help other Latinas and Latinos around us. So in addition to what my colleagues mentioned, find a way to mentor a Latino or Latina around you who needs it. Open those doors and bring them up with you. We will all be better off because of it.
And we definitely will be better off with you in our leadership. Thank you so much for joining the In Her Footsteps panel. On behalf of the Board of Directors of the USHCC, thank you to all. Have a good day.
Thank you, Jennifer. You did a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. And now, please welcome our moderator for our Latinas in Corporate America panel discussion, the Executive Vice President of Vision IT, Christine Rice.
Hello, and good morning, good afternoon. It's an honor to be your moderator today. And as Executive Vice President of Vision IT, I work very hard to ensure that Latina representation is not only within our organization, but throughout the United States. I'm proud of my Hispanic heritage, and I think it's important to continue to share information like these types of sessions so that we can continue to educate and help and inspire those that are continuing to grow their career and their journey. Today, we're going to hear from an elite panel of Latinas. I'm really excited about the opportunity to introduce you to these fine ladies. We know that Latinas are making a great impact in corporate America, and the honor of hearing from these ladies and hearing their stories is going to be extremely insightful. We've all heard about a lot of statistics, but I think it's important to share some of these statistics with you. Companies with more diverse executive teams are 33% more likely to see better than average profits. As the board of director level, more diverse companies were 43% likely to see average higher profits. So we know the importance of having diversity at the executive level, and we understand the importance of Hispanic buying power. Hispanic buying power is on the rise. We contribute more than 2.3 trillion to the GDP. So without further ado, I'd now like to introduce you to our panel. Hello, ladies. So let me introduce very briefly, but I'd like to have them share a little bit more about their background. So first we'll start with Marta Cadena. She is the regional bank president of Wells Fargo, and she has more than 40 years of industry experience. Marta, welcome.
Hi. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Yes, I am what we call a region bank president with Wells Fargo. I've been with the company about 20 years. And yes, Christina, you probably gave away my age a little bit, but I have been in the business for a long time, but have had the privilege of being with Wells Fargo for the last 20 years. And what I do day to day is I manage our branch network. I live in Des Moines, Iowa. I am a very proud Cuban refugee, but made my way somehow to the Midwest many years ago. So I'm in Des Moines, but I manage the branch network throughout Iowa and Minneapolis. So very excited to be here today and talk about a topic that is just very near and dear to my heart as we embrace and empower Latina culture and help other women.
Thank you, Marta. And no, you look fantastic, and thank you for sharing your ideas in this panel. Next, I'd like to introduce Patricia Chavez. She is the managing director at Bank of America. Patricia.
Hi, Christine. It's wonderful to be here today. And I thought, since we're talking about how Latinas can be successful and aspire to their goals in corporate America, I'll start with, I started as a teller with Bank of America when I was in college and have worked in a variety of roles with our company. And today I serve in our private bank. I work as a philanthropic market executive, and we work with nonprofit organizations, foundations, endowments, and charitable trusts to help them fulfill their mission. It's a very rewarding position, but I start with, I came to Bank of America as a teller and have had a variety of roles, and that's why I'm at where I am today. I am also a third-generation Bank of America employee. Martha, you brought up your Cuban background. My grandfather came from Cuba, immigrated to the U.S., and then received a position at Bank of America and retired. And my mom also worked for Bank of America.
That is fantastic. Well, welcome, and we look forward to hearing more about your story. Thank you. And lastly, but not least, is Hope Field. She is the Senior Manager of Latin Affairs with Coca-Cola.
Thank you. Buenas tardes for those on the East Coast, y buenos dias for those on the West Coast. Now that we've gone virtual, we're in all time zones.
Yes.
So yes, it's a pleasure to be here with this esteemed panel and with you, Christine, and to represent millions of Latina women across the country. As you said, I am with the Office of Latin Affairs for Coca-Cola, and I manage the company's efforts to strengthen and foster relationships across the East Coast, including Puerto Rico, focusing on the U.S. Hispanic market, which is the largest minority and fastest growing segment of the US population. In my role, I establish and develop the execution of local, regional, and national strategies that position the company as the leading corporate citizen. My responsibilities include managing relationships with Hispanic political, community, business, and civic leaders across the country. Prior to joining Coca-Cola, I was the director of partnerships for South News, a UN media company. And there I facilitated meetings pertaining to global development and fostered the relationships with ministers, ambassadors, and heads of states. And I currently serve as the the corporate chairwoman of the Morris County Hispanic American Chamber of Commerce out of New Jersey, where I'm also the immediate past chair. And I'm on the board, the corporate board for the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. It's a pleasure to be here.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, all of you. You bring such a wide variety of background, industry knowledge. And so I know that today our audience will walk out with some valuable information. So let's get started. Let's talk about, what has contributed to your success. If you could share, are there one or two things that you could share that attributed to your corporate success? Marta, why don't we begin with you?
Okay. All right. This is a big question. And Patricia, thank you for sharing your background. I started as a teller as well when I was 16, so I'm giving away my age a little bit. But, as I think about probably the one or two things that attributed to my success, I have to go back to, the prior panel where they elected, those powerful elected women were talking about their culture. And I think about the things that, my family overcame, being a refugee. We also went through some things as a child with my father losing his job through a stroke before Americans with Disabilities Act. So just a lot of adversity that I think we all have some of those scars in our lives. And I think about how that has translated into helping me build a resilient attitude. And I think overcoming adversity, growing up, and then being able to translate that into being able to deal with changes that come my way, being able to be present when there was an opportunity, being able to surround myself sometimes with people that believed in me more than I believed in myself. So, I think about just times throughout my career that I had other strong leaders that really kind of pushed me out there a little bit, even though I may not have. I was reflecting on some of the comments from Congressman Escobar, and she mentioned that, sometimes women have to be, we don't necessarily go jump at the opportunity. We have to be encouraged to do that. So that confidence and that resilience to be able to be pushed out there, I think has really helped me. And although I've been at 2 or 3 different companies, it's the same that applies everywhere. So you're noticed if you're resilient, if you're able to help move things forward and not stand in the way, but be that agent of change.
Excellent. No, well said. And, humble beginnings, and look at where you are now. I mean, what an inspiration. Thank you so much, Marta, for sharing. Patricia, have you had similar experiences, or what would you say 1 or 2 things that have contributed to your corporate success?
Sure. As I hear about the family values from our prior panel, and Martha, also from you, the resiliency, the optimism, the adaptability to change all come to mind. But that strong work ethic that you learn from your family, what I saw from my parents and my grandparents and their stories, and they always wanted better for me, and I felt a responsibility to deliver on that too, because I always wanted to have that I can make it. There is possibility for me. But I think the other thing I would add is I've always been very curious. I always want to learn about people, learn about strategy. And I've also been a very active learner in my career too. And I think that has really helped me. And then I can't stress enough the value of mentors and sponsors. I work for a company that does a lot of advocacy for women. And had it not been for some mentors who helped me maybe believe what I didn't believe I could do, or push me into a new position or a new idea or a new project, I don't think I would be where I'm at today. So I attribute my success to really family values, my own DNA in terms of how I was raised, and my work ethic, along with the mentors and sponsors.
Yeah, I can resonate with it. I think that's a very common theme among Hispanics is that family togetherness and just that drive to do more. No doubt. Excellent. Thank you so much. And Hope.
Yes, so I would say the first thing is experience, not only in corporate, but with the community. So I'm a chamber baby. I grew up in the Chamber of Commerce. My mother founded the Morris County Hispanic American Chamber in New Jersey 30 years ago. And she also served on the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And she is my role model and inspired me to get involved with the community and to deliver the Chamber's mission in helping businesses grow. So the Chamber has been a part of my life for as long as I can remember. Meetings, events, activities was the normal way of life for us. She raised my sister and I by herself. So we were always by her side. And the Chamber leaders and business owners are my second family. Their children are my first friends. The relationships that I built with civic and political leaders have been built over an entire lifetime. I sat in on meetings at a young age listening to matters regarding businesses and corporations and partnerships and politics before I even understood what any of those words meant. And I watched my mother lead boards of all men where she was the only woman. So I was raised with the mentality that anything is possible. And I went on to take several roles in the Chamber, and then I became chair for 4 years. And like I said before, now I'm the corporate chair representing Coca-Cola. And now I work for Coca-Cola, where I foster the relationship with Latino leaders and organizations like the one that I served my whole life. And as a Latina, there's great pride in representing Coca-Cola in Latin affairs exclusively. I work for a company that understands that engaging with the Hispanic community is a top priority. And coming from the entrepreneur nonprofit side, I brought a lot of innovative ideas to the table that resulted in the company standing out. And everything that I've learned over the years and all the relationships that I built came into play. So it was like I was training for this position my whole life without even knowing that I was. And then I would say the second thing is mindset. I was a state finalist in the Miss New Jersey pageant. And there I had the opportunity to meet Miss Universe, who happened to be Miss Puerto Rico at the time. And I asked her what was her advice in the competition for me. And she said that when she went to the Miss Universe pageant, every single girl was beautiful. Every single girl was smart. Every single girl was talented. And to just be the best version of myself that I could be. And so not only did I take that advice in the pageant, but I took that advice with everything in life. In corporate America, you're with the best. Everybody's smart, everybody's talented. But as long as you're the best version of yourself and you don't compete with those around you, you're always gonna do well. And then you can see the great qualities that other people have and work with them. So I think those were the things that most attributed to my success thus far.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Hope. You know, what a story. And it is interesting that you didn't even know at a young age that you were in training for this role, and what a perfect role it is. And as you said, you know, Coca-Cola does a great job with continuing to focus on Hispanics. And thank you for your leadership within Coca-Cola to continue to advance that message. That's excellent. Well, another question that I know folks have always asked is, you know, tips. So what are some helpful tips for leaders in corporate America, Latinas or non-Latinas, to help bring the next generation for Latina leaders? You know, we talked about that actually throughout the conference and the importance of continuing to lift up and educate. And so this is such an important question as to what are those helpful tips and what can we be doing? Why don't we start with Patricia?
Sure. I love this question because I have a 21-year-old daughter, and she is a future leader in corporate America, and she's a Latina. She goes to the University of Arizona, and University of Arizona was just designated in 2018 as a Hispanic serving institution. So she asks me these questions all the time. What is possible for me? At Bank of America, we have a strong focus on our recruiting and retention strategies. And it starts with universities. We hire from 350 universities across the world, 16 of which are Hispanic serving institutions in key areas, including Puerto Rico. And as far as our internship programs, for example, we hired 50%, nearly 50% were women, and 57% were people of color. So we do have a strong focus on diversity and inclusion, and especially women. We are a company where 18% of our employee base is Hispanic Latino, and we mirror the US population. So it's a strong commitment. And through these commitments, that's as we focus on these recruiting and development strategies, our goal is to have representation at every single level in our company. So it's critical for other companies in corporate America to institute these best practices. Make sure that we have a recruiting and development plan for all diverse people, all people in general, the whole entire population, but specifically around Hispanic Latinos and Latino women. Because with that, the companies will grow. As we shared in your statistics earlier, it not only affects the bottom line, it affects employee engagement, it affects our communities, and it really does make it a great company to work for.
Excellent advice. And yes, I do see a lot of programs, in many large organizations. And I think there still is more that can be done. And how do we continue to collaborate and share some of those best practices? I see that some organizations are doing some great things, but it's staying within their organization. I think something that we all should look at doing is sharing those best practices. And certainly the USHCC is a great platform in order to do that. So thank you.
Well, Christine, if I could add right there too, if we think about the things we've heard from Latinas today, they're resilient, they're optimistic, they're hardworking. What I would add too is they're innovative and they're entrepreneurial as well. As we think of America, a lot of small businesses are being started by Latina women. So it's really critical that we embrace Latina women and help elevate them through our companies.
Absolutely. Well said. I completely agree. Hope, what do you feel are some helpful tips for supporting the next generation of Latinas?
The first would be to inspire awareness. So be a part of events like this to educate people on the need for Latina leaders. The next would be accelerate action. Don't just talk about taking action, but when you go back to your companies, share the information from these events and share the conversations that are happening and educate those at your company that aren't a part of these events. The next would be recruitment. Whether or not you're in charge of talent acquisition doesn't mean that you can't influence hiring efforts, especially if you're Latino and you have knowledge of the strengths and the culture. And at the same time, find the balance between forcing assimilation and valuing diversity. And I would say refer Latinos to positions. We go to these events and you're networking with so many people. If you meet someone who you think would be great to work for your company, refer them. And the next would be development. So either sponsor or mentor a Latina. Every Latina counts. So if we each mentor one, those are a lot of Latinas that we're supporting.
Excellent. No, you're absolutely right. And, we talk a lot about recruitment and making sure that there's opportunity, but even take a couple steps back to say, how do we prepare the Latinas or Latinos for those opportunities and mentoring and sponsoring, all of that comes into play. So I completely agree. Thank you. And Marta, what do you have similar thoughts or anything else to add?
Sure. I'll add just a couple of things. I couldn't agree more with everything that Hope and Patricia said. I guess, one thing I want to stress is, even within our companies and at Wells Fargo, we have very active employee resource groups, which, Latina Latinas need to see us. They need to have role models. They need to see how we operate each and every day. They need to have those influencers. So it's really important that we show up and support and sponsor. So, you know, what does that look like each and every day? And they need to see us being authentic. And I really believe that it's helpful for us to bring our culture and our values with us to work. I hope you mentioned recruitment. You know, I live in Des Moines, Iowa. Okay, there, you know, some people think, oh gosh, you know, there aren't that many Latinos here. Well, you know, we have someone that speaks Spanish or Latino in every single branch. That didn't happen by accident. And, you know, from a business perspective, you know, our culture is one too, where, you know, Latinos bring other Latinos in, you know, so they're going to come to a branch if we have someone that speaks their language. So it just makes good business sense. So use your culture, use your values, you know, don't hide. There were years I remember, and again, I'm much older, but I mean, there were years where, you know, I could assimilate. I don't speak with an accent anymore. I grew up in Texas. So, you know, I still hablo español. I speak with a kind of a Cuban Texan accent, but there were years when I could get by and just not even say I was Latina. It didn't matter. So I tried to assimilate, and you know what? Those days are gone. So I don't want to assimilate. I want to show up, and I want to be an inspiration for other Latina women. And I think it's really important that we continue to learn and stay relevant. And I do want to add a quick story. I think, Patricia, you mentioned your passion for learning. My dad was a college professor. He passed away when I was 19. But you know, he came into this country knowing English, but didn't really know it well. And he loved to learn. I remember looking, and he'd have these bookshelves full of these thick books. You know, this is before the, you know, internet and before we, you know, learned differently. But if he came across a word in a book that he didn't fully understand, he read only in English, he would write it down, he would look it up, look at the meaning, kind of embed that into his, you know, vocabulary. And that stuck with me, that passion for learning something every single day. And as a leader in an organization like ours, I come back to that because I'm in a, you know, Patricia and I are both in a very changing industry. Being a teller in my case, 40 years ago is not the same as it is today. So having to being able to learn and adapt very quickly. And, you know, I always tell my team, if you can walk away every day and just, regardless of if it was a good day or bad day, what did I learn today? What did I learn about people? What did I learn about my customers? What did I learn about myself? It's a good day. So learning, and again, being very authentic and showing up to be that, you know, and lifting up those other Latinas. So I'll stop.
No, well said, absolutely. And, you know, I do a lot of speaking to young, you know, Latinas and just, you know, middle school, high school, and, you know, pre-college. And, you know, one thing that I share similar to what you just shared, Marta, is the importance of getting involved and being, and, you know, I always think back to, you know, my career as, you know, how did I continue to grow? And it was from taking that opportunity. People would invite me to events. Sure, I was, you know, uncomfortable but you have to put yourself out there. And you never know who you're going to meet. So, you know, I think that's another important message is continue to learn. How do you learn? By attending events, by getting out there, by going to different organizations, by mentoring, you know, a lot of the things that you all shared. Yes, make yourself uncomfortable. I'm a proud parent of two boys, no Latinas, but good Latinos. And I'm constantly telling them, get involved. And I do see them continuing to explore and really get involved in their culture. And that is important. So thank you for sharing that. Well, we talked a lot about, you know, involvement, you know, mentorships, learning. Now let's elevate it to more that senior level Latina. You know, again, very important part of what we're doing in corporate America is elevating the C level and getting involved in more of the corporate boards. And we're seeing more and more. I know I do a lot of reading around the importance of having representation of Latinas on corporate boards. And so I think that this is something that's being discussed, but personally, I haven't seen a lot of action yet. So I'm excited to discuss this and start to see some corporations stepping up and putting more Latinas on their board. And so we'd like to hear from the three of you as to why you feel having Latino representation on a board is important in corporate America. So let's go ahead and first start with Hope.
The Hispanic community is a powerful group, yet it is underrepresented in the power structure of business America. The Hispanic community is the largest and fastest growing minority in the United States. It also has a high growth demographic in terms of culture influence and buying power, driving much of the growth we see today. In fact, recent studies show that the US Hispanic consumer is the third fastest growing economy in the entire world. 1 in 3 Americans will be Latino when we complete the census, yet only 3% of executive suite is represented by Latino individuals, which is completely unacceptable. If we have the buying power and culture influence, we should have a seat at the table.
Absolutely, completely agree. And like you said, we need to continue to do more in order to have that seat at the table. I agree. Marta?
Yeah, it's interesting because it's something that when I choose to retire out of corporate America, that's a path that I want to go down, and to look at perhaps, corporate board representation. And I feel like, okay, what would be my selling point? What would be what I could bring to the table? And Hope, what you mentioned in terms of the demographics is spot on. In addition to the demographics, I think, female representation in terms of, what we have been discussing, throughout the whole segment is crucial. We think differently. We're able to, I think it was one of the senators mentioned, if a woman had been in charge of the pandemic and the issues, we would have, been over it by now. I think that's true. So there are so many things that we can bring to the table that are just in our DNA as women. And then I think we have that extra piece about, being Latino and just the values that we bring and the sense of unity and resilience that we bring. As I was thinking about this last night, believe it or not, my 20-year-old son who's in college can't believe I listened to hip music, but I was listening to J Balvin, which is a Hispanic artist. And there was a quote, believe it or not, it said, Latinos are identified as being pushed ahead by circumstances, then being resilient, adapting quickly to abrupt changes, and then coming out on top. So I thought about that and thought, wow, abrupt changes are what corporate America right now is all about. Okay, we've got to be able to change on a dime. We've seen that through the pandemic. We see that just through demographic shifts. But to have that kind of mindset and to be able to spin on a dime and digest something, be resilient, get through it, and be able to come out on top, I think is incredibly valuable.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing. And Patricia.
Great. I couldn't agree with Martha or Beth more on all of those things. What I will say, it starts at the management and at the board level, the management team and the board level. And I'm proud to work for a company where 47% of our directors are diverse, one of which is a Latina. And I couldn't be prouder of that. Bank of America is one of 4 S&P 100 companies with more than 6 or more women on their board. As a leader in our community and a devout board member, Monica Lozano has served on our board for nearly 2 decades. She serves on the Management and Human Capital Committee as well. And while she's so busy and while she's so engaged in the work that she does, She makes time for our employees. And I'll give you an example. And I'm sure she does this quite a bit, but an example that really resonates with me is I'm a co-chair of a California Women's Leadership Network. It's a network where we bring in 100 top talent women across California, and we put them in programming that focuses on career development and empowerment of women. We asked Monica to join us for one of our events to have a fireside chat with us. And she went through her career, the challenges she faced as a Latina, her background. And what inspired us most was her commitment to the community, her commitment to education, her advocacy for women. But most of all, a lot of what we've talked about today, her network, the importance of building and expanding your network while you're on your professional journey. And it was so inspiring. And I think, Martha, you said you need to see it to believe it. With Monica Lozano, she makes herself present where we can all feel inspired to do things beyond, to see what's possible, to live out our dreams and aspirations. So we're so fortunate to have Monica as part of our company. And I think that's a testament to what the power of what that can do.
Excellent to know. And that's exciting to have leadership at that level committed. Fantastic. Thank you. Well, we're coming to the end of our session, but if we could just quickly go around and let's leave everyone watching with, some inspiration around how do we prepare for Latinas and giving them opportunity. I know we talked a lot about opportunity and advancement, but if you could just quickly share a word, an idea around encouraging Latinas to prepare for opportunities. Marta.
Okay. I'm going to reiterate a little bit about relationships. And I would tell you, relationships are crucial at the beginning of your career. They're crucial, as Hope mentioned, when you're growing up. You never know where those relationships are going to lead you. I'm involved in the community heavily, as with my other two colleagues here. And relationships matter. So don't ever let an interaction go by without, being yourself and being, who you never know. You may be someone that they're going to hire in the future. So I think that's really crucial. And then I also want to just touch on diversity as it relates to all dimensions of diversity. I think the other thing is just to honor, and I use that word very deliberately, but honor and invite differences. So we may bring a certain piece to the table, but you want to surround yourself with people that are also different and have other differences than you do to help round you out. So build those relationships, build your network, and make sure that that network is diverse.
Excellent. Thank you, Marta. Patricia, your thoughts?
Yeah, a lot of the same thoughts. I think there's the common theme about through this conversation has been about really leaning on your network, seeing what's possible. I think being courageous, being confident, and being curious. Stay curious, always be learning. And one thing that always comes to mind is a lot of women in general, when they fail, they tend to dwell on the failure. Instead of dwelling on the failure, pick yourself up, see what you've learned, evaluate it. And guess what? Next time you go into a situation, you go in with that experience to back you up and strengthen you. So I would leave that with the audience today.
Yes, I agree.
Opportunities and possibilities are endless. Yes.
Absolutely. And you've heard probably, fail fast, like you said, don't dwell on it. Yes, we're going to fail, but you should learn from that. And then let's keep it going in a positive direction. Thank you. Hope, your thoughts.
I just want to add quickly to what Patricia was saying. My mom was born in Bogota, Colombia, and she moved here when she was 19 years old, and she has an accent. So my whole life, I grew up with people treating her differently because she had an accent. Yet it bothered me more than it bothered her. She's just such an incredible woman. And we were talking about the women influences in our lives. And she just kept going and pushing herself and didn't focus on what people were saying, just kept focusing on being the best version of that she could be. And she's now a well-known leader throughout the country and internationally. So it's incredible once we set our minds to something, what we can do. But the other things that I want to say is educate yourself. Whatever your field is, whatever you want to excel in, make sure that you get a degree or certificate or whatever it is, if it's a master's degree, educate yourself, stay informed about developments in your field. You want to be knowledgeable about what's going on. Get involved with the community. You'll always get something out of going to events or to be involved with the community. And as we talked about and Martha elaborated on, is establish positive relationships with people, because these are the relationships that you'll have for the rest of your career. Work hard, push yourself to get out of your comfort level. I know that's difficult for us, but we can push yourself to get out of your comfort level, build your platform and portfolio. And last but not least, but believe in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, no one else will.
Absolutely. Well said. And we're unfortunately, we're coming to the end of our session. Thank you all for sharing such information that is so useful and impactful. And thank you for everything that you're doing within your organizations, within your community, and certainly in an effort to help the USHCC. As a board member myself, it's important that we continue to educate and influence others. I heard a lot about active learning and about mentors and, putting yourself out there, getting involved. These are all great ideas. And so I hope our audience today takes those ideas and puts them into action, and you will see a positive response. And we thank you, elite panelists. A pleasure to get to know all three of you, and congratulations on your career. And we wish you the best as you continue that journey. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our sincere thanks and gratitude to all our panelists. Coming up in just a few moments, workshop panels. And at 2 p.m. Eastern, don't miss our exciting USHCC award ceremony, hosted by comedian Eric Rivera, with a presentation of the Hispanic Business Awards, including the Hispanic Chambers of the Year, the LGBTQ Business Advocate Award, a special presentation of the Otley Award, and the Corporation of the Year, among many others. Our sincere gratitude to our gracious sponsors for their continued support. Nos vemos enseguida.
Since 1852, Latinos have been Wells Fargo customers and team members. Today, Latinos are powering U.S. economic growth, and our commitment to empowering this community is stronger than ever. You have a dream? We want to help. You have an idea? Let's get to work. Wells Fargo provides the resources and advocacy that helped create a level playing field for all. As the top mortgage lender to Hispanics, in 2015, we pledged $125 billion for Hispanic homebuyers through 2025. We help Hispanic business owners build credit and gain access to capital. We empower Latino youth as a partner of the Hispanic Scholarship Fund by providing more than $24 million in scholarship support since 2003. We champion our diverse team with equitable pay and career development programs. We see difference as opportunity, culture as talent, and every person as an agent for positive change. Wells Fargo remains committed to meeting the financial needs of our customers and empowering Latino wealth for generations to come.
Juan, ¿tú dices que yo tengo llamadas ilimitadas?
Sí, mami, con T-Mobile tienes llamadas ilimitadas. También textos ilimitados.
Juan, dime, ¿es que yo puedo ver películas y otras cosas?
Mami, sí, también tienes datos ilimitados. Ahora, por favor, ¿puedo seguir trabajando?
Uy, ¿hay alguien que no tiene paciencia ilimitada?
At T-Mobile, get a plan with unlimited talk and data with 5G access included.
Our paths aren't all the same. We have different perspectives on the best way forward. But on issues that matter, like climate change, we're more alike than we think. We want cleaner solutions, and that means working with each other. So the innovators in America's natural gas and oil companies have teamed up with the country's brightest minds and reduced carbon emissions to the lowest in a generation. Let's together.
The Adelante movement has changed my life for the better. I was more empowered. I was more encouraged to go out there and dream big. It woke the inner, powerful, sassy Latina inside of me, and I wasn't fearful anymore. I was just like, go for it. What's the worst that they could tell you is no? If you're afraid of no, then you're not gonna get it far in life. So who cares? You're pursuing your dream, you're doing what you want, and you're gonna get there. Don't worry about what everybody else thinks.
Hey, Isa, I got a Spanish-speaking customer on the line.
No problem, Jake. I'll take it. State Farm, habla con Isa.
Uf, una grabación.
No, soy una persona. Isabel, Isa de State Farm.
¿Segura? ¿Y cuánto es 29 por 11?
319.
¿Y si te digo 3 tristes tigres?
Trigan trigo en un trigal.
Gracias, Isa. Es que me gusta hablar con personas. Te llamo para asegurar mi auto nuevo.
Muy bien, lo hacemos ahora mismo para que puedas comenzar a ahorrar. Como un buen vecino, State Farm está ahí.
Hola, ¿sabes quién soy?
Soy todos los latinos que viven en este país.
Soy todos los hombres.
Y también todas las mujeres.
¡Y los niños!
Soy la que trabaja duro. Y la que trabaja duro, doble turno.
Triple.
Y soy aquellos que trabajaron duro por nosotros.
Soy el que vino y se quedó.
Y el que nació aquí.
Y la que trajeron de pequeña. To dream big.
Soy cada latino que cuenta en este país. Y cada 10 años, el conteo del censo nos da la oportunidad de beneficiar a nuestras comunidades con clínicas de salud, escuelas o nuevos negocios que generen empleos. Un mejor futuro. El censo ya viene. Y por ley, tu información personal está protegida.
El censo ya viene. Dale forma a tu futuro. Empieza aquí.